step out of a curtain and 400 people will go nuts. And you've got to remember the other side of this camera is a sign that says applause.
A Tony and Emmy-winning actor.
He was on TV screens for 8 years.
The man himself, James Corden.
I went upstairs and I sat in his room. And I just went to him, I need you to know that I haven't changed. I love you more than you'll ever know. And he went.
Before we jump into this episode, I'd like to invite you to join this community to hear more interviews that will help you become happier, healthier, and more healed. All I want you to do is click on the subscribe button. I love your support. It's incredible to see all your comments, and we're just getting started. I can't wait to go on this journey with you. Thank you so much for subscribing. It means the world to me.
The #1 health and wellness podcast.
Jay Shetty.
Jay Shetty.
The one, the only Jay Shetty.
James, it is truly an honor and privilege to have you here today because I have to be honest with you, I've been a huge, huge, huge fan ever since Smithy and Comic Relief. And I was at the Grove just a couple of weeks ago and I was remembering how that sketch started there.
Yeah, that's where we shot it.
Yeah, and you walk into one of the rooms and you're with and so I've been such a huge fan from day one, and watching you and admiring your journey, seeing you go crushing it from the UK through to the US. And, you know, I moved to the US a few years after you did, but just getting to see the impact you had there, the amazing, amazing content that you've created. I'm a big fan of whether it's Spill Your Guts or Carpool Karaoke, like every single segment you guys so produce, such a huge fan. And so to be able to sit with you, and even the few moments we've just spent together off camera, I've already enjoyed your company, but I wanted to start off by just saying I'm a huge fan and thank you for doing this. So
well, I'm a huge fan of yours. I think what you've done is really quite extraordinary, actually. I really think it's actually deeper than a successful podcast or show or book. I think what you've done really, I think, and I'm sure I'm certainly not the first person to say this to you, is you've created like a safe place for people to talk about mental health, everything, you know what I mean? Feelings, the depth that I think is, of course, we're more aware of today than we were a decade ago, and certainly a decade before that. And I think you're a real big part of that. And I'm a real fan of the show, and it's given me a lot over the years. So it's a real thrill to be here. And I hope I can be deep enough to fulfill the needs required, you know?
Well, for everyone who doesn't know, everything that James was saying to me off camera just now, like, James, save it. I need you to say it again because it was perfect. But James, I was thinking about this. I was looking at your journey and I was saying, like, you went from writing, right? Gavin and Stacey, amazing success. Gone to the West End, amazing success. Broadway, Tony Award, amazing success. Then moving off into late night, amazing success. And there was something I was observing about you, and I felt that what I saw in you was someone who had the ability to continuously disrupt themselves, take risks, and innovate when it seemed like there was a clear path. And I wonder whether what's the decision you've made right now is almost the same thing, that you've said, I don't want the safe option, I'm willing to take the risk. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I think so. I mean, it's really lovely of you to say that. There's also misses in the middle of that. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think it's very important to say that curve could also be looked. Do you know what I mean? There's as many misses as there is hits. You just want to keep that ratio as clean as you can, you know? In the sort of last 6 months since finishing the show, and then the few months before that, when we announced that we were ending the show, lots of people would say, you know, they would ask why you're doing this and why would you leave such a thing and such a contract and offer and all those things, which I completely understand. I've always been able to separate work and life, and that the two, one shouldn't outweigh the other. Does that make sense?
Yes.
That actually you have to go, well, I know that for my career, Ruth Jones, who I co-wrote Gavin and Stacey with, which was a show that became successful in the UK, we could have, of course, have carried on writing that show and making more episodes of that show. But I don't know that was, at the time, feeding our life. I wasn't feeding mine. It wasn't feeding Ruth's. It was like, we've done that. It's time to stop. We have to do something else. And then, I love being in plays. I love being in the theatre. And when I was in One Man, Two Governors or the History Boys, there was a path where you could say, well, I could carry on doing this. And there were moments or opportunities to perhaps go and do another play after that. But it was like, well, I don't know that that's going to feed my life. So I think the key from what I'm trying to do is go, well, if my work is feeding my life and my family, then it's of benefit. And if it isn't, then it won't be. And I think some people perhaps often just look at their career as being the primary thing in their life. Well, the work is the thing, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that, then I'm going to do this, then I'm going to do that. And you have to go, no, but how is that feeding your life and your soul and who you are as a friend, son, brother, husband, father, and that's the thing I think I've always thought about. So the decision to end the show had nothing to do with not enjoying it anymore. It had nothing to do with it not being fun. Financially, of course, it was fantastic. But then it got to a point where it was like, is it feeding me and us as a family? Is this environment what we want now? I don't think it is. Okay, well then we're just gonna turn it over and shake it and see what it is the other side of that. Yeah. The thing I keep coming back to all the time in my life a lot recently is just to constantly say, well, we don't know yet. We don't know. I don't know yet. I can't tell you if it was a good thing or a bad thing to stop the show. I don't know. I will only know in a year or 2 years or maybe 5 years' time, because you just don't know. You don't know at all. In the same time that you might accept a role over here, and when you get that job, people are going, oh my God, this is the greatest thing ever. And you say, well, we don't know. Me and my friend Louis, very dear friend of mine, Louis, who moved to America to come and write on the Late Late Show. Uprooted his family, moved. Oh, he didn't have a family at the time, had 2 kids in the 8.5 years we were there. We wrote a TV show together, which got picked up at Hulu. Oh, I wasn't going to be in it. We just created this show. And then a few months later, we wrote 2 scripts, and they really loved the first script. Then we wrote the second script, and they said, look, we're not going to make this show. It happens all the time. And I was really bummed. And my friend Louis said the best thing. He was like, look, if they'd have picked it up, it might have been the worst thing to ever happen to us. We might have fallen out. We might have, who knows what would have happened. It might have been a disaster. We just don't know. Yeah.
You have no idea.
You just don't know anything.
You've reminded me of this beautiful Zen story where a farmer finds a new horse.
Love this story.
You know the story?
It's amazing.
Yeah. The farmer finds a new horse and everyone's excited. And they're like, wow, this beautiful horse. You just came upon it. Like, how lucky are you? And he says, good thing, bad thing, who knows?
Yeah.
And then his son's riding the horse and he looks incredible. But then all of a sudden he gets tipped off the horse and his son falls off and breaks his leg. And everyone's like, oh no, this is the worst thing ever. Like, if only you didn't bring that horse in. And he says, good thing, bad thing, who knows? And the story continues. And hearing you say that, it's really honest of you to share that though, because I think sometimes when we make a decision, we often feel like we have to convince ourselves it's the best decision in order to make it through. But for you to actually have the vulnerability to say, I actually don't know, that takes a lot of courage.
Well, I do know that ending the show, I do know that the reasons for it are absolutely right, no question. But you don't know how those things will. You just don't know. You don't know any of it. So if you can accept all of it, if you can just say, well, this is it. This is life, what we're doing now. Me and you sitting here. This is it. We're doing it. You're alive. And I think sometimes the expectation of stuff is the thing which really ruins stuff. Your expectation of what a holiday might be, your expectation of what Christmas Day was going to be like, is actually the problem. The thing that happened on holiday, or the argument you had on Christmas Day, that's not really the issue. I didn't have an argument on Christmas Day. I'm just using it as an example. That's the thing, I think, is your expectation of, well, when I do this, my life will be like that. And I think I've thought that a lot of my life. When I get my driver's license, my life will be like this. When I get a girlfriend, my life. When I move out of my parents' house, my life is going to be like this. And it's not. It isn't. It can't be. And what it is will be amazing because you're going to be alive, you know? Yeah. And I think I just feel very accepting of everything now at the moment.
Yeah. There's something really beautiful that came out of what you said, this idea of reasons over results. Like, you know your reasons. You don't know what the result will be, but you're sure about your reasons. And that's something we can all practice and take on. Like, I think that's something everyone who's watching can apply, that you never know the result of your decision. You don't know how it's going to pan out, but you can be sure about your reasons.
Without question.
And if you feel clear about those.
And to recalibrate perhaps what success is. And that's, I think, a big issue in a broader society. What is success? Success is not this amount of money. It's not this amount of gold statues and trophies. You know, you've got to look at it as a whole. It's really interesting if there are numerous people who talk about the night that they won an Academy Award as being the loneliest night of their life. And yet for us, looking in on that, you look and go, oh my God, this is incredible. I would give anything.
Why do you think that is?
Because I think it's more, the climb is the thing. The top of a mountain, I think, can be quite a isolating experience, actually. And the climb to the top of it is, and of course, when you get there, it's amazing. Because you go, oh my God, we did, you know what I mean? We did it. It's like someone that takes a helicopter to the top of Everest is not going to have the same experience as a person who's climbed it.
Absolutely.
You're looking at the same view, but it's going to feel very, very different. For sure. I also think it's an incredibly, you know, the anxiety of it, the fear of it. I can only imagine. I don't know. I can only imagine. And so I think that what you realize is that the doing of the work and the climb of it is the thing that is the most satisfying. And how can there be such a thing as best? Ever. You can be the fastest runner over 100 meters. That's not up for debate. Usain Bolt, you are the fastest runner over 100 meters. You can't be the best film. That's impossible. You know, it's
more subjective.
Yeah, of course it is, and should be.
Yeah. Where did your drive for success come from? You just said that you've realized now that success is not, you know, the bank balance or this or that, these specific things. Where did your initial drive for success come from? Did you always define success in a particular way, or was it just what you think everyone in our generation was almost chasing?
I don't know. I think for me, really, I really don't remember a time that I didn't want to perform. I just don't remember a time that I didn't want to just perform.
Did you perform at school and at home?
I mean, everywhere. I would call it performing. I'm sure some people would call it showing off. My mum would, you know, oscillate between the two, stop showing off. Still, you know, like I loved performing in any shape or form. School play, church, playground. I really, really loved it. Like I can remember so vividly the first time I was ever sort of on what we'd call a stage. So we grew up we were a family that were in the Salvation Army, which is a church, but that's also a charity. And like any church you're born into, you think that this is completely normal. You know,
so true.
When you're any church you're born into, and then like whether we would like put on a uniform and my dad would, occasionally march down the road in a brass band, and we would do Christmas caroling, and I would play the trumpet, and you just thought, well, this is just completely normal life. And then you get to about 15 and you're like, guys, this is really weird. But it was essentially a church, and that's what we'd go to. And a church, from what I can really work out now retrospectively, was perhaps full of the least Christian people I've ever met in my life. Like many churches, at its core, good. Infect it with people becomes something very, very different. And so we're in High Wycombe in Buckinghamshire, and my sister was 4. My sister Ruth was 4, and it was her christening. And we were on the platform, which was, to all intents and purposes, looked and felt like a stage to me. And the Salvation Army officer, the vicar, the priest, I couldn't see because I was, quite small. And he said, let's get James a chair. And I stood on this chair, and I could just see there was maybe, 30 people in the congregation. It looked like 1,000. And I just started like pulling these faces and turned around and looked back through my legs and people are chuckling. And I was like, well, this feels fantastic. And then what I really remember is sitting back down in the congregation, and I was sat between my mum and dad, and the person's back is in front of me. And I remember being like, well, this is boring. This isn't nearly as much fun as being up there. And I was 7 at the time. And no, I was 4. And my sister was obviously a newborn. So I was 4. And I remember just thinking, well, that's it now. Life is a quest to be up there as much as possible.
Oh, that's beautiful.
So I think that's what I always thought success was. Like my absolute ambitions were to be in a West End musical. Yeah, that was it. That was the peak. And literally, it was a road away from where we are now at the Prince Edward Theatre. And I was 17 and in a musical. And I honestly, genuinely was like, well, that's it for me. It cannot be greater than this. Yeah. That's where my absolute ambitions were, to be just on a West End stage.
That's spectacular. I mean, you said there were misses naturally in the journey that I laid out in the beginning. I wonder, what were some of the most painful or tough misses, whether when you were young or as you got older? What were the ones that you look to and say, I'd love people to know about this or learn about this? Because when you look at it from the outside, it is easy to see hit. But these are the couple that maybe would surprise us.
Well, there's things that you do that just naturally aren't very good. That's the first. You know what I mean? There's things that you do and they're not very good. Those things you understand why they didn't connect, because they're not very good. Yeah. And oddly, I don't feel a sort of sense of any disappointment in that, really. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? I don't, because someone asked me once, because I was in that film. I was in that film Cats, right, of the musical Cats, and I haven't seen it, but like by all accounts, not good, and didn't do very well. And someone said to me, "Oh God, do you regret that?" I was like, "No, I'd do it again. I had a great time." Yeah. You have to separate sometimes your own experience and the outcome of a project, because you can do things that do really well, but at that time in your life, it was a disaster. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
Such a good point.
And at the same time, you can do stuff which isn't good, but actually you had a really great, you know what I mean?
I love that.
When we were shooting Cats, we had an afternoon and I sat in this weird green suit with dots on your face with Ian McKellen and Judi Dench. And I wouldn't swap that for anything. Yeah. To literally sit and talk to Sir Ian McKellen and Dame Judi Dench about, I couldn't tell you what we talked about. I couldn't tell you if it was, and I was like, well, how lucky am I? Yeah. This is extraordinary. Yeah. So I think I did a TV show which came out, I think about maybe just 2 years ago now, or maybe 18 months ago, which was on Amazon, called Mammals, which I was really proud of. And I really hoped that people would find that, and they didn't. That's the only thing that I look at and I think, because it got reviewed well. It's written by, I think, the best living playwright at the moment, you know, or certainly young living playwright, called Jez Butterworth, who wrote like Jerusalem and The Ferryman and Mojo, but then also wrote Skyfall and Spectre and Indiana Jones.
Wow.
And it was me and Sally Hawkins and Malia Krellian. And that's what I would say, that's the only thing that I go, I wonder what we could have done differently to make people find it. Yeah. But then we don't know yet.
Yeah, you don't know.
We don't know yet.
And you don't know when it's going to take off again. Like, I love hearing about
But
shows.
even if it doesn't, we don't know, you know, who know, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you just have to.
I love what you just said, mate. I love that perspective of the idea that, and I can relate to that. I've had moments in my life where I'm having one of my biggest external career wins, but I didn't have the right people around me to celebrate it with. And therefore it's not as gratifying or as celebratory, or it's not as meaningful. Whereas you could have had something that externally, like, no one cared, but you had the people around you where you knew what you'd built and you knew what you'd created. And I love that. That resonated so strongly, honestly.
Well, also the notion that, I don't know, the way I see it is every single day, your life can get turned over and flipped on its head in a phone call. Every single day. Like I used to say that to my wife, Julia, all the time when we were in Los Angeles, where I would go, every day we live here and the phone doesn't ring in the middle of the night to tell us something's happened at home is an absolute win. It's an absolute win. And you just have to be so aware that those things are coming and those things are real. And all the stuff that we're talking about over here, work and all those things, it isn't those things that are just gonna just bang. And then you're talking about life before and after those moments. Like, I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, you know, and I'm 45, and my friend said to me, and it's quite a dark thought, but actually it's good to, he said he's 45 also. And he said, we've turned the corner into Sniper's Alley. And I said, what do you mean? I didn't know what he meant. And he said, you're now in an alley, and suddenly people are going to just, and you're going to go, oh my God. Like, it's just that, it's that shift in life of like, oh, this is where, like, I'm very fortunate. Both my parents are still alive. So that's inevitable. That's definite. And then you're in this world of just absolute unknowns. So I think the older I get, the less I sort of think about work in that way. I just don't. And maybe because I've had 6 months of real reflection, 6 months of not really doing anything. You know, started this podcast that I'm really, really enjoying. Outside of that, I'm writing some stuff. Some of it I hope people will see. Other stuff, I'm certain they never will. You know what I mean? And I do, you know, and some of it I hope they never will. Like, oh, that's a terrible idea. You know, and you just don't know. And so I just think less about work, and I want to think more about my health and all those things, you know?
Yeah. Walk me through what, like you've had all these transitions in your life. Walk me through what your reflection process looks like in your head. Like, just for you personally, like, it doesn't have to be systematic or perfect. Just what is it? What do you go through? Is it looking at going, well, am I helping my family? Am I taking care of them? Is that the number one thing? Or are there other things that go through your head? Because I feel like you've had to make some big transitions.
Well, that's the number one thing. You're only as happy as your least happy child is a wonderful saying, which is without question true. There is nothing that can happen in your professional life that will matter if one of your children is unhealthy, unwell, either mentally or physically. This is irrelevant. So let's park that as a given.
Yes. Very clear.
In terms of my reflection, I mainly I just think I'm so aware of time and the passage of time, and that this is it, and you have to go, okay, well, now how do you really, really want to use your time? Because I think when I was hosting the show, I think I probably knew this at the time, but I recognize it more now, that I think I said yes a lot, perhaps to too much, because I just loved. I knew I wasn't going to host that show forever. I didn't want it to be the end of the book. I didn't want it to be the last thing I did. So I didn't want it to be a shock when I finished the show and said, oh, I'm going to go back to act again now. Because I was very aware that there was a lot of people watching that show who had no idea that I'd ever acted before that.
Very
So I really just said, absolutely, yes, I'll do it. I'll be there. I'll do it. And I think I understand my reasons for it. But now I think mainly the thing I'm really thinking is, well, forget what you can do, forget what's possible, forget what's in front of you, forget what's offered to you or not offered to you. What do you actually want to do? What is worthy of your time? What is worth not taking your kids to school in the morning or picking them up at 4:00? What are the things? Because that's really the question you're asking yourself, you know? And like, I don't have like so much money that I don't have to ever work again. I really, really don't. Whatever you might read on the internet is, I cannot stress to you, untrue. And so, you know, it's that thing of just going, well, what do you want to do? Is there anything that you want to say? And if there isn't, then don't. And it will come. It will. It will come. And, you know, it's interesting that since moving back to London, and I feel in a different cultural space, I'm trying my absolute best to hit 10,000 steps a day. I'm really, really, really trying to do that. And so sometimes I'll just go, and once the kids are asleep, I'll go and I'll look, and I'm at 8,000 steps, and I'm like, babe, I'm just gonna go and I'll literally walk up and down the road and to come back in. And in that time of walking, I'm starting to feel the notion of like, oh, is that an interesting idea? But don't leap on it.
Yes.
Don't go, that's it, let's go. Let's book a flight. Let's pitch it. Is to go, oh, well, let's see if it, almost just to treat it like a plant really, and go, we're going to water it for a minute, see if there's something there. And already now I'm like, well, thank God I didn't go and tell someone about that. Have you ever read that thing about doing the thing?
Yes.
I mean, that's I just look at that almost every day, doing the thing. Just do the thing. Don't talk about doing the thing. Don't tweet about doing the thing. Don't. Just do the thing. The doing the thing is the thing, and that's all I'm really trying to do.
Yeah, it's fascinating because I find, like, you know, you've been performing, as you said, you love performing when you were a kid. You've been performing for decades now, and it's almost like an identity shift when you stop yourself from performing in a. I'm talking about performing in a play or in a movie or on stage. Like, you're not allowing yourself to do something that feels so pure and true, and I can see it in your eyes when you were talking about it, like brings you to life. Yeah. And almost removing yourself away from that requires you to rethink your identity a little. Like who are you today, or how are you feeling about who you are when you're not performing, when you've been so used to entertaining crowds for so long? I'll be honest, managing money has always been something I've had to stay mindful about. It feels like everywhere you turn, someone's trying to make you spend. That's where Acorns comes in. Acorns is a financial wellness app that makes it easy to start saving and investing for your future. You don't need to be an expert. Acorns will recommend a diversified portfolio that matches you and your money goals. You don't need to be rich. Acorns lets you get started with the spare money you've got right now, even if all you've got is spare change. Sign up now and join the over 13 million all-time customers who have already saved and invested over $22 billion with Acorns. Plus, Acorns will boost your new account with a $20 bonus investment. Offer available at acorns.com/purpose. That's acorns.com/PURPOSE to get your $20 bonus investment today. Paid non-client endorsement. Compensation provides incentive to positively promote Acorns. Tier 6 compensation provided. Investment involves risk. Acorns Advisors LLC, an SEC registered investment advisor. View important disclosures at acorns.com/purpose.
I'm Cheryl Swoops, WNBA champ, 3-time Olympian, and Basketball Hall of Famer. I'm a mom, and I'm a woman.
I'm Tarika Foster Brasby, journalist, sports reporter, basketball analyst, a wife, and I'm also a woman.
And on our new podcast, we're talking about the real obstacles women face day to day.
See, athlete or not, we all know it takes a lot as women to be at the top of our game.
We want to share those stories about balancing work and relationships, motherhood, career shifts. You know, just all the shit we go through.
Because no matter who you are, there are levels to what we experience as women.
And T and I, well, we have no problem going there.
Listen to Levels to This with Cheryl Swoops and Tarika Foster Brasby, an iHeart Women's Sports production in partnership with Deep Blue Sports and Entertainment. You can find us on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Does your heart long to wander? To discover the deep secrets of coral reefs, explore the wonders of the California coast, and island hop from the Galapagos to Madagascar. Feed your wild heart. Travel the world right here in San Francisco at the California Academy of Sciences. Get tickets at calacademy.org. See penguin feedings, puppet shows, and other live programs daily at the Academy.
But that's ego, I think. That's ego. That's what you're talking about, is ego. I lived for 8.5 years what could only be described as a narcissist's dream. Do you know what I mean? I cannot stress how much I think being the host of a late night TV show is one of the greatest jobs in the world. I think it's amazing. I think it is brilliant. Like, my God, how lucky am I to have done that? I think it's amazing. You know, but if you were another way inclined, you drive into a studio lot, you drive past a massive picture of your face. So that's the first thing you see when you get to work, is a huge picture of your face and your name. You then park in an amazing parking spot with your name on it. You go in. Like, I tell you the thing I miss most about the show is I miss seeing, there's a great lady called T who was on the front desk at CBS, and my interaction with her every day, I just grew to love it so much. Morning T, morning James, how's it going? All good. And as I walk through the door, she'd say, have a good one. And I go, have a good one. And it would be a race to who could say it first. You get in a lift. You come out the lift to be greeted by another picture of your face. Do you know what I mean? It's like another picture of your face and your name. You turn a corner and then you start walking up a corridor and there is just your name and faces everywhere, right?
Yeah. Pictures of you with everyone.
Everywhere. Then you get to say, well, what are we going to do tonight? Back up. But then you get to like shoot a sketch with Matt Damon or drive around in a car with Stevie Wonder. Then you'll come back into work, get dressed. You work also in a gang of people who are the funniest people you've ever met in your life, ever. And they only want to try and make you seem funnier. And that's amazing. And you chat with them and you're hanging out with them. And then good day, bad day, indifferent day, your day will end with a standing ovation. Right?
That's amazing.
You'll step out of a curtain and 400 people will go nuts. And you've got to remember... And the thing that I would just remember all the time is the other side of this camera is a sign that says applause. Do you know what I mean? There is people going, you know what I mean? Yeah, wow. And the walk down from like office green room to the studio is an amazing change in your psyche because you're with all your bone that. And very slowly, I remember the first show, because really you're in a gang. You're in a team where you make a late night show. It's just a gang. You're all making it together. And then at some point, people tap you on the shoulder and go, have a good one. And then you are surrounded by people. You walk in, microphone, makeup, touch up. You enter a door and you hear, you know, the other side of this thing, you hear 400 people screaming. You hear a guy go, okay, that's everybody on your feet. Let's go. This is how we do it. Another look at the judge. All right, everybody, here we go. Let's get ready to. Okay, and we're going to 5, 4, 3. And you find yourself stood behind a curtain, completely on your own. And suddenly this team effort, you are on your own. And the spotlight's behind you, so this circle is on the curtain and a shadow of you. And I used to stand there, I'd open my hands, take a breath, I would look and I would say to him, I always have this feeling that my granddad is getting a real kick out of all this. So he is not with me in any spiritual sense. He's just in for the ride of it. You know, like, I know that he just, you know, he's a jazz musician. He would be like, this is fun, James, you know, and I would open my hands and I would look up and I would say, be with me, just be with me and be here now. And for the next hour, your only job is to enjoy yourself as much as you can. It doesn't matter what's happened all day. It doesn't matter what happens on tomorrow's show. Your only job is to enjoy this right now. And I did. And I, you know, we did 1,198 shows, I think. And I just loved it. I loved it. So it's a lot to leave behind. It's a lot to walk away from. But I also think this period of silence is so good for me. I'm getting as much or more from this period now. Yeah. Like, you know, it's so odd that I used to do that every day. That then even speaking to you now, I'm like, God, I haven't spoken to anybody in this sense. Yes. Since April. I haven't done anything. Yeah. And so it feels odd. You're like, oh man, this is, and the podcast I'm doing, I'm loving because I'm in your chair. Yeah. But even now this feels unnatural. And there is a feeling of like, I don't know what I've got to say. But then you go, but I'm going to get to meet Jay. So that will be lovely, you know? Yeah. So what is life without it? It's great. It's great, I think, because I really, really always knew that this wasn't going to be forever. I always knew I wanted to leave before it ebbed away. I just knew that I wanted to do it and then stop doing it and see if there's something else. And if there isn't, okay, great. Who could wish for more? Do you know what I mean? Yeah. I guess that's the thing. I look now and I think I don't want any more stuff or fame or all those things. Like, what I'd really love to do is go, I wonder if I've got one more thing to write. I wonder if there's one more thing to say. Like, I wonder if there's just something else. And I don't know yet.
What a brilliant way to live. I mean, when you just said that, the idea of I knew that it wasn't going to last forever and I didn't want it to, that's so the opposite of how we're conditioned to think. Most of us are conditioned to believe when you find something good, hold on to it forever. Make sure it lasts forever because you never know. And I love your perspective because I think not only is it healthier for the mind and the ego, it's actually the reality of life, that everything is ephemeral and transient and it will move anyway. Yeah. And so you wanting to hold on to something that isn't yours to control is almost a fool's game anyway.
Well, then you're a kid with a balloon.
Yeah.
Right? And you go and hold, I'm never ever going to let this balloon go. Right? And ignoring for a second the environmental impact of letting a balloon go. Let's talk about it just metaphorically.
Yes,
you know,
yes,
that you go, this is my balloon. I'm going to hold this, but I'm never, ever, 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 ever going to let go of this balloon. In fact, I'm going to tie it to my wrist so it can't disappear, because that happened to me once before. And it, you know what I mean? I'm going to just, that's it. And then slowly that balloon will just wilt and it will run out of the thing that made it great. And it will just then it's tied to your wrist and you're dragging it behind you, right? And actually, there's something quite beautiful. And again, environmentally, I'm not encouraging this. We didn't know about this when we were kids. When you let go of a balloon, it's magical. Magical. Look, and then you see it and you're like, oh my God, I used to have that. I used to hold on to that. And look at it now. Look, it's just floating. Wow. That's amazing. And then you go, well, now I haven't got a balloon. And then you go, well, maybe I'll get another one.
Yeah.
Maybe there'll be another balloon, and maybe it'll be a different shape, or it'll be shinier, or whatever it is. Like, you've got to be able to let go of stuff to make new things come in. You've got to have the space and the time to encounter something new. A friend of mine, a year ago, maybe less, had his heart broken in the most brutal circumstances. It was his first love, first girlfriend, and they broke up, and he was just not in a good way. And this was his first real, proper, serious girlfriend, certainly the first time he'd been in love before. I just found myself saying to him, I was like, this is great. This is great, because you really only understand what love is once your heart's been broken. You understand how tender it is. And I was like, and you understand it now. And you're looking at this all wrong. You get to do it again. You get to do this again. You're going to meet someone else and feel all these feelings, and perhaps you'll go into that relationship learning what you've learned from this relationship, and that will then feed that relationship in a different way. And he's just met someone, right?
Yeah.
And he's like, oh my God, this is amazing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah.
Got that balloon again.
Yeah. You're like, that's it. That's it. And so, again, I think it's expectation is the thing that makes us hold on to stuff.
Yeah.
If you can just ebb and flow with stuff, you're going to find it so much easier to take the good, the bad, and the everything in between as just all being good for you, I think.
James, you're a philosopher. Who knew? We're going to have to add it to the list. We're going to have to add it to the list of the titles. No, genuinely, I mean, that visual you just painted of the balloon, that's going to stay with me for a long time. I've probably never heard it. I don't know that it's a thing. I think we just might have made it up. You made it up, but it is so...
Banksy made it up.
Yeah, there we go.
We've taken Banksy's image.
No, it's such a beautiful way of sharing that lesson. There's, a Zen saying that says, what's holding you back is what you're holding on to.
Yeah.
And that's, but that visual that you just painted is so powerful. And even the visual that you painted of saying that you come out to all this rapturous applause and, the hoo-ha and the idea of you coming out into the stage, but you're thinking about the fact that the screen says applause on the other side.
Well, because I think if you don't, it's really dangerous. I think it's really dangerous.
Were you conscious of that? And have you been conscious of that the whole time in your career? Because
no, not the whole time.
When did that become like a real? Because that's Marcus Aurelius' meditations at its best. Marcus Aurelius famously had I
don't know this.
So Marcus Aurelius, when he would walk around the Roman town square, he had an assistant that would follow him around. And the role of the assistant was that whenever anyone in the town square would say, Marcus Aurelius, you are such an amazing emperor. You are phenomenal. You're incredible. The assistant's only job was to whisper in his ear, you're just a man. You're
Right.
just a man.
Wow.
And that sort of practice. And so when you said that, that's the first thing I thought of when
I didn't know
you
that.
said the
That's
applause. I was like,
amazing.
wow, you know, you're living that.
I think I've probably fallen into the pitfall of thinking I was more of a dude than I really was quite early-ish in my career. I guess in a way, I think I don't know. I think I'm sort of entering phase 3, right?
Yeah.
If phase 1 was History Boys writing Gavin and Stacey, phase 2 was going to Broadway to do One Man, Two Governors, everything that came with that, and then ending up hosting a late night TV show. And phase 3 will be whatever this is, and I don't know. I mean, look, I've fallen into all those pitfalls of thinking that you're more of a dude than you really are, thinking any of this is, it's like fame and success, whatever, you know, level of that I kind of have in a way, like it's on the whole a picnic, right? It's great. It's lovely. People come up, they talk about things or to things that they've liked or enjoyed, and certainly being back here in London, you know, it's amazing hearing people talk about like Gavin and Stacey and stuff, which obviously I would never hear in America. And I'm so proud of that show. And I think I've started to think of like, don't confuse the selfie, right? I think for me, I think it's different if you're like Brad Pitt, Harry Styles. Do you know what I mean? Adele. Like, I think that's that's an aura and an orb of fame, which I think is not what I'm talking about now. Whereas I think, on the whole, when people are asking for a selfie with me, it isn't really anything to do with me. I think it's just people go, well, this is going to be good on my story. Right? I do. No, I do. No, I'm not, that is not any faux. I genuinely believe that.
Yeah.
I think people are going, well, he's there. He's only over there. This is gonna be great.
Yeah.
In amongst the other 4 photos of my day, right? And I love taking photos of people. I don't say no. So I used to say no when I was with my kids more, but now they have a bit better understanding of it, and I don't need to hold their hands all the time. So that was my wife was like, you cannot give your attention to someone else when they're that. Like, so Charlotte
walking past the road,
whatever.
like, yeah.
So Charlotte's 6. So if I'm out with, like, you know, my 2 eldest, it's always a lot easier now, and it's people are really great and cool and lovely.
Yeah.
But I don't ever in my life go, I got all these people here. They just want a photo. What can I say? I just go, no. This is. They didn't find me. They haven't been waiting for me. I just happen to be in the same Joe and the Juice as them. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, I might as well, you know?
Well, no, I love that. That's amazing. But no, I do love how conscious you were of that, and it's so fun because that mindset, that approach to success, that approach to fame makes everything just feel wonderful and beautiful, and it makes everything so. You know, in the sense of when I don't mean perfection. I mean in the sense of it gives you a sense of joy in an interaction, removing the expectation and the weight that can come with it.
Yeah, I also just think you have to just take it all with a bag of salt.
Yeah.
All of it. Everything.
Yeah.
Everything. Good, bad.
Yeah.
You know, if you just can take it with the same bag of salt.
Yeah.
And distance yourself from it. You can just sort of go, well, that's over there.
Yeah.
That's happening over there. But what's really I'm here.
Yeah.
And here are my friends and my family and all those things, and also just being so aware of, like, how lucky you are.
Yep.
How lucky you are. Yeah. And if you lose sense of that, and I understand when people do, by the way, and I have, you know, at other points in my career and in my life, and I'm not walking around like this every day. Like, I have all those same things, right? So this, it's not like I'm sort of floating around like a kind of. I'm really, really not. And a lot of this really is predicated on just how much sleep I get.
Yeah. Mate, that's true for all of us.
Like, that is it.
You know what? I've been on this supplement recently. I was talking to so I'm very into, biohacking and health and all the rest of it. And so I've been testing this supplement that I've been having for the last 30 days, and it's like boosted my mitochondria so much that I can't get to sleep. I have so much energy. And I was telling my doctor, I was like, mate, I really want to sleep. Like, I enjoy sleep. I'm not someone who sacrifices sleep. I enjoy sleep.
Sleep is,
and I haven't really been able to sleep because of this one supplement.
Do you think that's anything to do with that, also jet lag and the time difference?
I think there's a bit of that, but I've been here for like 30 days now. So I'm like, it should have gone in after a week or two. But I agree with you. Coming from LA to London is the harshest jet lag, right? Because I go from sleeping at 9.
Never really get used to it.
Oh, it's really rough. And so it could be that, but I feel like,
sleep we so rarely, I think I'm saying rarely talk about it. We probably talk about it more now than we ever have in the last 40 years. But like, sleep is this extraordinary gift. And I think I'm probably more aware of it now because I've got a 12-year-old who seems to think that sleep is some sort of punishment. Do you know what I mean? Like, he views sleep as like, why would you do this to me? And like, dude, I don't want to be awake right now, And it's something like in Alan de Botton's new book,
please,
which I bought for you as a gift,
Thank you.
I think it's called A Therapeutic Journey. A Therapeutic Journey, which I bought for you. I don't know if you want to plug other people's books.
No, please. No,
it's not as good as How to Live Like a Monk.
No, Alan de Botton and The School of Life. I'm a big fan.
Genius.
It's fantastic.
Genius.
Yes, very big fan.
And he's got a section in that book where he talks about sleep. And he says, when you've got a newborn baby, you are very, very, your only intention is to put this child into a routine and make sure that they sleep at the right time for the right amount of time. So therefore you feed it the right food to make sure it's because if you don't get the right sleep, they are going to be awful tomorrow. And then at some point, we just decide, well, I don't need to do that. That's only for a baby.
Yeah.
I can sit with my phone at midnight, just looking a stream of 30-second videos to then carry to not sleep and imagine that I'm going to be okay tomorrow. And I find that sleep is just like this gift.
Oh, tell me about it.
And the better sleep I have, that without question, in every facet of my life, I'm better.
Yeah.
Like, I'm really thinking about. You don't drink, right?
No, I haven't.
So how long have you not drunk?
I would say, how old am I? Like maybe 18 years or something.
Right, but did you ever? Right, okay.
Yes. Not an alcohol. I was never an alcoholic, but I drank socially, enjoyed it, had fun, loved drinking games. Used to hang out with the lads and go down.
You're about where I am. So I really, I very rarely drink at home. I never really get in and go, I'm going to have a glass of wine or a gin and tonic. But if I go out, and if I'm out, I'm like, I love the feeling of being 3.5 drinks in.
Yeah.
Between 3 and 6, I am. Look at Raj's face. He knows what I'm talking about. I can feel it in my knees and I love it, right?
Yeah.
And now as I've got older, I'm just I'm going to really try to just stop doing that. Like, with no great declaration. I am. I just am really, really going to try not to do that because my friend, a good friend of mine, my friend Jez, I spoke to him about it and I was like, how did you just manage to did you just stop doing this? And he said something to me, and I think you'll really like this. He said, I started asking myself, and I do think this changes post probably like 37, 38. It starts to change in your body. And he said, I started to ask myself, how much of tomorrow do I want to borrow? All I'm doing now by drinking is borrowing from tomorrow.
Wow.
right? It's like you're going to a cash point.
Yeah.
You're going to a cash point and you're going, I'm going to withdraw 3 hours from tomorrow that I will be useless. And then probably if I just borrow 3 hours around about noon or 1, I'll start to feel okay.
Yeah.
So I'm borrowing from tomorrow.
Wow.
And how many hours do you want to borrow? And sometimes you borrow a day.
Yeah.
And then the only way you think you can rescue that day is to go, let's have another one. You know?
Yeah.
And I thought that was a really,
Really
amazing
powerful,
way
yeah.
of looking at it. And so my intention is to really try and not do that. I just want to try and just be healthier. I don't even sort of think about weight loss anymore. I've done that so many times in my life. Just made so many like decisions of just, right, this is it. I'm not going to go, well, why don't you change that? Because that isn't working. Why don't you just only try and do what is healthy and see how that impacts your
Yes.
frame?
Yes.
You know?
Yeah. No, I like that approach. I mean, you know, I think it's natural when we're recording this, it's like New Year's resolutions and start of the year and all that kind of stuff. And I think all of us know that about 80% of us drop off by the end of January. By February, we're not practicing this New Year's resolution, this massive commitment we made. And it's almost because we go from this huge extreme from being indulgent in December to trying to be hyper intentional in January.
Yeah.
And trying to go from one extreme to the other. And none of us can hack that. It doesn't work.
Well, a friend of mine said a really good thing to me. My friend Simon said to me, he said, you need to stop going on a diet. Because my weight has gone up and down. You know, I can see it in too many videos on YouTube. Like where I was up, where I was down. I used to have like 3 sets of suits. Lauren Shapiro, who was our wardrobe designer on the show, who I'm now saying, as I said it out loud, would have hated hearing her name on your podcast. And my time with her, I used to just love so much because, like I said, so much of the day would be a lot of people. And then it would just be me and her choosing suits and choosing what I'm going to wear. And we'd chat about the day. And, you know, we've had moments where we cracking up laughing. We have other days where one of us is really down. And it would just be this little precious moment in this very small walk-in closet that was off my office where all the suits were. And my time with those are the things I really miss.
Yeah.
That's the stuff I really, really miss. And she very, very subtly, and we never talked about it. We never, ever talked about it, but I knew what she did and I was grateful, was she basically started organizing my suits into like really fat, and always looking good. You could see. And she would just...
You always look good, man.
But she would just very, very in the just... And I would go, and then it just became a thing where I'd be like, I think we're, you know, particularly if we came off a hiatus or a go away and just, okay, I think we're going to be, and she'd be like, and we'd never really speak about it. But my friend Simon said, you need to stop going on a diet. I said, what do you mean? He said, you've got to stop. You've got to stop going on a diet. He said, because going on a diet is like going on a holiday. You are going to return. You're going to come back.
Wow. That's
he said,
good.
if you go on a diet, what you're saying is this is short term. He said, you need to just go, this is how I live now.
That's good.
And this is it. That's not going, I don't eat any bread. No. In moderation, it's probably good for you to eat certain types of bread, but that's it. And don't just stop this thing of being like, oh guys, I'm on a diet. Yeah. And he was like, and stop broadcasting it. Stop saying it. Just stop saying it. Just go, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to try and exercise like this. I'm going to try and walk like I'm trying to do. And just be like, no, I'm going to eat this. And don't be like, well, I want to be down 20 pounds in 35 days. Like, because you've done that. Yeah. And you know how that plays out. Yeah. Don't go on something.
That's
just
good.
Change something.
That's good. I like that. Yeah. On a diet, on a holiday. That's good. That's strong. You've got some wise friends, James.
I do.
There's a lot of good. There's a lot of great advice. Are these
really
friends for like life? Are these friends recently?
Some of my friends, Simon, I've known probably probably about nine years. And then I have like friends who I've known for 35 years. You know what I mean? Like,
what's it taking to keep those? Because I find like, I've been talking to a lot of my male friends about this recently, and this idea of, do you have a friend that you could call in the middle of the night and they would pick up, they would turn up, they would be there? Because if you have one of those friends, that's pretty rare and pretty incredible, especially as men. I find sometimes it's almost harder to have those vulnerable relationships, but you seem to be having a lot of open, vulnerable, healthy conversations with men in your life.
But I think it's easier now. I think it's easier now than it used to be. Right. I hope we're going to move into a generation of men. And I think you and your show is responsible for that. I think just the ability to just be like, I'm struggling is a thing which I think for a very long time men were conditioned to, that was weak. Yeah. And actually it's almost certainly the bravest thing you can do. It is a tremendous act of bravery to say, I'm not doing too great at the minute. And as soon as those words leave your mouth, I reckon 20% of those things have gone. And I'm very, very fortunate. I just have a lot of friends that I've known for a very long time, and I love them, and I tell them I love them, and I enjoy the company of people so much. I just, it's interesting you talk about who would call, like my friend Louis that I was just telling you about, who we wrote that script together. Louis had a previous life where he would go out sometimes for 3 days. I don't think he'd mind me saying this. He'd go out for days on end. And I always, I said to Jules when we met, I said, just so you know, I've got this friend Louis, and he goes out for a long time. Like, what London was like in those times, in these very streets.
Yes.
And I said, if he calls me, I have to pick up. I always pick up, because I always used to think he might be in trouble. This resulted in some of the funniest things I've ever heard, right? Him calling me at 2, 3, 4, 5 in the morning resulted in some of the funniest things I've ever heard.
Yeah.
And so that's why I'd say to anybody who doesn't pick up the phone to a friend in the night, it might not always be bad. Yeah. It might be so. He called me once. I think it's okay to tell you this. He called me once, and I was like, for 3:30 in the morning. I said, hey man, are you okay? And he went, and he's drunk. And he went, I'm going to tell you something now, and it's a fact. I went, what? He went, it's a fact. I went, sorry? He went, what I am about to tell you is a fact. It is a fact of life, and I would like to share it with you. I said, okay, it's 4:45 in the morning. He's like, it is a fact, James, that I have never and will never see the Jersey Boys. Goodbye, and hung up the phone. Go on, and you're like, oh, he's okay.
That's brilliant.
And so,
I love
that. I don't know. I think friendship is, I think it's sort of everything, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like it's. I cherish it so much. I also think, with kids, it's really important for them to see you with friends.
Yes.
To not separate those things, to involve your friends with your children and your children with your friends, because I'm really aware that like my son's 12 and like he's right now, like we just get on great. We get on so well.
Yeah.
So we get on so well. It's beautiful, and I'm so aware that is about to change because that is just nature. Yeah. I took about a year ago before we moved back. I took my son. I can't even remember what happened. But he was kind of stroppy and he stomped upstairs. He's really not that kind of boy, but he did. And I went upstairs and I sat in his room. And I just went to him. I said, "Can I ask you some questions?" And he was quite taken aback because he thought I was going to go, "What was that about?" And I went, "Can I ask you some questions?" And he went, "Yeah." I said, "Do you think I love you?" And he went, "Yeah." I said, "Do you think I would ever do anything to intentionally hurt or upset you?" He said, "No." I said, "And do you think in the 11 years that you've been on earth, do you think I've changed dramatically?" He went, "No." I went, "Well done. You scored 100%. They are all the right answers." I said, "And I'm telling you this because over the next few years, there are going to be points you are going to think I don't love you. You are going to think I am intentionally trying to hurt or upset you. And you're going to think that I've changed. And I need you to remember this, that I haven't changed. Wow. We haven't changed. You've changed and you need to. And you have to. And you are going to go through immeasurable changes in your life and body. And all we are trying to do, me, your mum, your sisters, and it's going to happen to them too, are just trying to help you navigate these bumps that are going to come your way and these changes, both mental and physical, that are happening for you. But I need you to know that I haven't changed. I'm never trying to intentionally hurt or upset you. And I love you. I love you more than you'll ever know. And he went, "I think we should have some sort of code word so I remember this." And so we came up with some silly code word that I would just say to him, like, "Do you remember?" Yeah. And he'd be like, "Oh yeah, you haven't changed." I was like, "My hair hasn't changed, dude. I got the same hairstyle that I had when I was 18 years old, you know."
Oh, man, I got chills. That was, yeah.
And I really feel that with friendship, that I'm so painfully aware that there's going to come a point where the influences that aren't me are going to become bigger on my children for a moment. And so if I can make sure that those other people that they look to are people who are aligned with how I feel, then it's going to be great, you know?
Hey, y'all. Nimini here. I'm the host of a brand new history podcast for kids and families called Historical Records. Executive produced by Questlove, The Story Pirates, and John Glickman, Historical Records brings history to life through hip-hop.
Smash, slam, another one gone. Bash, bam, another one gone. The crack of the bat and another one gone. The tip of the cap, there's another one gone.
Each episode is about a different inspiring figure from history. Like this one about Claudette Colvin, a 15-year-old girl in Alabama who refused to give up her seat on the city bus 9 whole months before Rosa Parks did the same thing. Check it.
And if you get with me, did you know, I wouldn't give up my seat 9 months before Rosa, it was Claudette Colvin.
Get the kids in your life excited about history by tuning in to Historical Records. Because in order to make history, you have to make some noise. Listen to Historical Records on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
In a galaxy far, far away.
No, babe, that's taken. We're in our own world, remember?
Right. In our own world, we're 2 space cadets.
And totally normal humans.
Sure, totally normal humans.
Embark on a journey across the stars, discovering the wonders of the universe, 1 episode at a time.
We'll talk about life, love, laughter, and why you should never argue with your co-pilot.
Especially when she's always right.
Right. And if we hit turbulence, just blame it on Mercury retrograde.
Or Emily's questionable space piloting skills.
Hey! Join us on In Our Own World for cosmic conversations, stellar laughs,
and super corny dad jokes.
Listen to In Our Own World as a part of the My Cultura podcast network, available on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. And don't worry, we promise to avoid any black holes.
Most of the time.
Hey friends, I'm Jessica Capshaw.
And this is Camilla Luddington.
And we have a new podcast, Call It What It Is. You may know us from Graceland Memorial, but did you know that we are actually besties in real life?
And as all besties do, we navigate the highs and lows of life together.
And what does that look like? 1,000 pep talks, 1,000,000 I've got yous, some very urgent I'm coming overs. Because, I don't know, let's face it, life can get even crazier than a season finale of Grey's Anatomy.
And now here we are, opening up the friendship circle to you.
Someone's cheating?
We've got you on that.
In-laws are in line?
Let's get into it.
Toxic friendship?
Air it out.
We're on your side to help you with your concerns. Talk about ours, and every once in a while, bring on an awesome guest to get their take on the things that you bring us.
While we may be unlicensed to advise, we're going to do it anyway.
Listen to Call It What It Is on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
And sometimes they're going to take advice from dad's friend more than they are from dad.
They are going to seek it.
Yeah.
They're going to absolutely seek those other role models.
Yes.
Particularly boys.
Yeah.
I think that's right. Is that right? I think
feel
that's
like
right.
that. Yeah, I feel like that.
I don't know if that's completely right, but I do think that there is perhaps more of a thing between boys and dads, and it's such a strange thing. It's so odd,
Yeah, I remember. So you wouldn't know this because we didn't know each other then, but I became friendly with James Longman on your team years ago.
Yes.
And so Longers had invited me to come and watch the show. This is when I first moved to LA.
No.
When I first moved there. So this was like 5 years ago.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and I got to come, and he's wonderful, obviously.
He's the greatest.
And so he showed me around. I got to see all the rooms and the green rooms and everything. He just gave me the best tour ever.
He's great.
Took me to the photo wall. I got to put up a fake photo of myself on the wall as if I'd been on the show. All of it. It was really sweet. And we didn't know each other at all then, of course. And I didn't know anyone else apart from him. And I was just really excited to be there because I was such a fan of the show. And I remember you were so wonderful, even in between the show where you're in between segments, like it's not live, and you would come and chat to the audience, you'd shake people's hands. And then I remember you'd go and call your kids and you'd literally sit at the desk in between and just like and you'd tell us, you'd be like, guys, I'm just going to call my family because I'm going to say goodnight to my kids.
Mm.
And it was it was so amazing to see someone who's in the middle of everything you described so phenomenally earlier, but then be like, I just want to say goodnight to my kids because it's that late, right? However late it was at that time. I think kids were going back to bed at 7 or whatever.
Yeah, it's about 7 o'clock.
7 or whatever it may have been. And I remember you FaceTiming them and then we got to wave at kids. And I just remember how special that was. And I just think, I've heard you say before that, for so many years, your family was marching to the beat of your drum. Like they were there for you. Sure. They were just holding it together for you so that you could build and create. And I just think about moments like that you were having with them.
Immediately, I'm so worried that the show you came to was terrible. That's all I can think
it was
about.
Good. It was Mark Ruffalo. It was great.
But that's really what really resulted in us moving back. Is the truth? Is like my wife just walked to the beat of my drum. My family, we're going to New York. We're going to LA. I'm going here. I'm going there. Babe, I'm going to do this thing in Australia. You good here with the kids? Do you know what I mean? Honestly, I genuinely feel, and I get the feeling that you might be like this. I feel like I could live anywhere. Anywhere. Yeah. I could live anywhere because we're very fortunate that you're here now in London. You're going to go back. You're going to go to India. You're going to go to New York. You're going to go to LA. Like, what a privilege. I'm so aware that hasn't been my wife's life for the last 12 years, 13, 14 years, And so really our decision to move back was like, I was going to stop the show regardless. There was a moment where I was going to stop it a bit earlier, and then it was done so beautifully, my leaving of the show. Like me and my boss, George, just sat in my office and literally talked it out like this. No agents, no lawyers, no nothing. Like, I said I'd like to leave at this date. He said, is there any way I can get you to stay to this date? I was like, I can't stay to that date because we've got to resettle. The kids have got, they have to start school in September, and then at one point it was going to be May, and then there was like, I think there's golf and masters and all these, and we literally just were like, okay, we'll end it then, and that'll give us the right gap. And all of that came from me just saying to Jules, like, I'll live anywhere. Where do you want to be? Where do you think it's best for us to be? Because I know she would never make a decision that isn't best for the kids. Forget me. And she was just like, I think it's time to go home.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, that's it. And I'm so grateful that we did. Just in my family, before Christmas, we had my mum sings in a choir. It's not a church choir. It's just a choir with some of her friends. And we all went out to High Wycombe to watch her sing in this choir. I sat in this room in John Hampden Sports Hall, or their, theatre hall, just a school hall that we were in. I cried my eyes out. I cried. I couldn't stop crying because my mum was in this choir with like 40 other people singing Christmas songs, and it was so pure. It was so pure. It was so the antithesis of what our life had been in Los Angeles. And my mum was in the corner of this crowd, and she couldn't stop smiling. And I just thought, oh my God, this purity that's here. These are a group of women and men in there. I guess they range between 30 to 60 people. And I just was like, this is everything. I don't want to be anywhere else. I only want to be here. And it was so weird. It's so weird, the effect it has on me even now saying it. I can't understand it. I can't tell you why. I think it just felt in that minute like, oh, this is the sacrifice. This is why we made what you would perceive to be a great sacrifice.
Yes.
This is the reason. Something here that I would never see. I would never come back for. I would never be part of. And then my dad joined them for a few numbers playing the saxophone. and I just was like, oh my God, this is worth everything. This is everything I need to feed me and my kids watching their grandma sing this song. I was like, how lucky are we to appreciate and have this experience?
Yeah.
To have come back and everyone be healthy,
Yeah, for sure. What does it take in the marriage for that communication, for that, even the fact that, you're both asking each other questions, you're both checking in with each other. Like, that's not easy. It's challenging. Yet, like, what is that taken, like, from both of you to really be able to make those big decisions together?
It's taken me learning from my wife. That's it. Like, she, I think, has always known and always figured out how to communicate, how to do this. Wow. And I think I've been terrible at it. I think I've been rubbish at it. Because I think I lived for a very long time an existence of just, nothing will move me from this train I am on. This is it. Oh, you're hopping on? Great. But this is the thing. And actually, you then realize that isn't the case. I mean, we don't argue very much. We really, really try to talk in the day. Right? To not make it the last thing we do. Even if you are going to bed with like, and it's more her than me. And she's like, well, I can talk to you about that tomorrow. You know what I mean? But it's so much better than going to bed, going to sleep. Just don't go to sleep on an argument.
Yeah.
That's the first thing. And I think I learned quite probably halfway through our marriage that actually if all you're doing, and this is an almost impossible thing to do, but if you're at least trying to, you're pretty much there. If you're going, well, if all you're trying to do is meet your partner's needs, then all yours in turn will be met. They just will. Like, how many times do we hear? It's funny. We had a friend of ours, or a friend of my wife's. They're friends of ours, but you know, if we ever broke up, she'd get her. You know what I mean?
Man, now you've got me thinking about all our friends.
Divide it up.
Yeah.
It's quite a fun game.
I think my wife's going to take.
It's quite a fun game, but and she was saying this a few years ago now. She was like, "Oh, he just never does anything for me. He never surprises me and takes me out for dinner. He never says, oh, I'm good, you know, buys a theatre ticket. He never says, oh, Friday night, me and you, let's do this." And I just went, well, when do you do it? How often do you do that? And she went, well, I don't. And I was like, right. But you have to see that might be a... that might be a thing. I was like, for all we know, he's sat somewhere now going, she never takes me out. She never goes, let's go to the cinema. And she was like, oh, and I was, and that's it in its most base level. I think that's probably the thing I've learned the most.
Yeah. I love hearing about your relationships and the way you talk about your relationships. Obviously, this whole shift in your life is because of your relationships. And so it's so wonderful to hear about it. And you were giving me credit earlier for, you know, hopefully changing conversations around masculinity. But I think you did that very much so as well with your bromance comic relief videos with David Beckham. And I'd always appreciate those when they came out. And I know you guys have a real bromance, but seeing it on screen was always a real treat. Whether you're doing the Calvin Klein ads together or whether, you know, or doing each other's nails or whatever it was. It was so funny. And you went to the premiere recently of his documentary, which I thought was just
it's brilliant,
phenomenal. I read Bex's autobiography when I was like 15 or something, and it was life-changing. I loved it. And getting to watch the doc was obviously reliving it again.
Oh, I mean, what a story.
What a story, right?
Just the whole thing. When I watched it, it really, really reminded me. Have you ever watched Aaron Sorkin's commencement speech at Syracuse University?
I have not. No, I have not.
Me saying, you know, when I get my driver's license, my life will be like this. He actually says that in that speech. He talks about that, and I think, that was the first time I realized that, like, oh, that's what I have always done. His commencement speech at Syracuse University is brilliant.
Okay, I have to
as
watch
you
it.
can imagine, it's just so brilliantly written,
Yeah.
and he delivers it. It's exceptional. It's my favorite thing to watch on YouTube is people's commencement addresses, and his is particularly good. And I would urge anybody to go and look at it. I use it. I quote it. It's fed into me, you know. And he says a brilliant line, and it really came to the forefront of my mind watching the Beckham documentary, where he says, "The world doesn't care how many times you get knocked down, so long as it's one less than the amount of times you get back up again." And that's what I think the Beckham doc is.
Yeah.
It is a story of a man who just doesn't stop. He just gets back up and he carries on. And that's what it's about. You could say it's about the first sportsman to become a global brand and icon. You could talk about it's the first family to have become, perhaps in Britain, outside of the royal family, a family of intrigue and interest. You could say it's a story about fame and sport. It's not. I think it's a story of someone who just kept going through adversity, through challenges, just got up and carried on. And that's why I think it's resonated so much with people. Because it's interesting. I don't know if you found this, but like, it's interesting being British and watching it.
Yes.
So then it's because people in America are like, I had no idea. Oh my God. Those soccer fans, the way they were with him. And you're like, yeah, no, I know.
Yeah. I remember the effigy, but
you know, and then Greece, and that's where sport though can transcend everything. It's like, it's why I think sport and music I think sports stars and musicians I think their fame is so different to actors and performers and hosts and writers. And I think their fame is something different because they give you moments. They give you moments in like, and really what I put those moments down to is they made you feel less alone. That's actually what it is. It's why our relationship with singers and recording artists is so personal, because I was in this play called The History Boys, and it's written by Alan Bennett, and there was a speech that Richard Griffiths used to deliver every night, and he'd say, the best moments in poetry are when you think a thought or a feeling is particular to you. And then suddenly someone who is long dead, will never meet. No, he says someone who you will never meet, perhaps even long dead, has written down the very thing you're feeling. And it's like a hand has reached out and taken yours. And it says to you, you're not on your own. You're not on your own. There's a great bit in a John Lennon documentary where there's a guy saying to John Lennon, that song you wrote, but it's, that was about me. It's about me. That's how I am. And John Lennon's going, they're just songs. They're just songs. It isn't that. And he's going, no, but it is. You wrote that about me because you can't know how I felt. And so I think you don't, suddenly you feel very alone. You hear something and you realize you're not. And then I think sport, when David Beckham curled that free kick in the top corner, which when we qualified for the World Cup, it did not matter Tory, Conservative, Republican, Democrat, left, right, all the stuff, the divisions, everything, suddenly, and you're hugging people you don't know, you've never met, and you're brought together and you're not alone anymore. And that's where I think sport and music is such a powerful thing in our lives, which you don't feel when you watch a film. You can watch a film or a TV show and go, oh yeah, that's good. Oh, that was amazing. Even if it moved you hugely, that connection isn't the same, I don't think.
That's why you gave him an ugly statue of himself. For all of that, mate. That was the best.
Oh my
mate.
God.
I've watched that a million times.
That day, man. That was so much fun. That was just, because pranks, they're the worst thing to film. They're awful because they could just go wrong at any point. They could go wrong, one notice of a camera and hundreds of thousands of dollars gone. Yeah. And my God, that day just worked out in the best way. It was,
it's so good. If anyone's not seen it, it's so good. Like if you watch the doc and you love David Beckham and you love what James does, you have to go and see it. It's just, you made the ugliest statue.
Well, I had the idea.
One of the best looking men.
Well, I had the idea because do you remember the real Ronaldo one?
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah.
So then it was like, I remember going into Ben's office and going, because I think if they hadn't done that with Ronaldo in real life, I don't think David would have believed it.
Right, yeah.
But it was because it happened in real life with Cristiano Ronaldo that we were like, oh, hang on, we could do this. Wow. And I never thought it would work as well as it did.
Yeah.
And credit, I have to say, to the actors in that sketch. I mean, just brilliant.
Yeah.
Pitch perfect.
Yeah. Manchester City. That was brilliant.
Dave.
It's amazing. It's amazing. Walk me through that. What you just said now, that you're in that space, 6 months, you're reflecting, figuring it out. We're waiting for that next balloon. We've let the other balloon go. What does James Corden's creative process, stillness, waiting for the idea, building an idea look like? What does that look like? Where does inspiration strike? Where does it come from? Where do you seek it when you've let go of something without knowing what's next?
What I'm really trying to do now is not rush anything. I spent a long time squeezing so many things in that actually now I just sort of think, well, don't force an idea to be whatever it is that you might write or do, but then at the same time, I think what I have to really be conscious of now is to not be too afraid, to not be too scared to do anything. Because I think I've been so enjoying this feeling of not being on TV every day and putting out content on whether it's YouTube or, social. I'm so aware of how much was just being pushed out all the time. And that can come with so much stuff.
Totally.
It's good to sit and wait, but then don't be scared to do it. Don't be scared of the failure of it. I've only took a screen grab.
Sure.
I think it's the guy who's the new CEO of Vans shoes.
Yes. Okay.
I think.
Okay.
We used to work at Logitech, and it says here, I've just got the screen grab, which he ran for a decade, and he penned a Dr. Seuss-like poem titled The Secret to Success, Avoid It. It reads in part, success makes you fearful of losing your place, of gambling with stature, of losing your face. And there is an element of that, which I feel of like, well, there's a very, very, very real chance that you do something and it's shit.
Yeah. And all the greats have had that. They've all done that.
Oh my God. Yeah. But I think that's why I was so keen to, even in this period, to make this podcast called This Life of Mine, to like go, well, no, I know what this is like. This idea of this podcast is an idea I had when I was 16, and I wrote it out.
Wow! I love that.
I wrote it out, and it was called Planet Lovely.
Right?
That's
better name now.
It's called Planet Lovely. Because do you remember there used to be a TV show on TV on BBC Two when we were growing up called Room 101?
Yeah, of course.
So Room 101 was a show where people would take things they hated in life.
Yeah.
And they would put them into Room 101 and they'd be gone forever. It was a really funny show. It was a brilliant show and premise. And I was like 16. And I was like, well, this is great. But wouldn't it be brilliant to make a show which is just people talking about things that they love and things that are really significant in their life?
Beautiful.
And I wrote this like thing, this Planet Lovely. It's not called Planet Lovely anymore.
This Life of Mine.
Came to the decision that that's a not great title. But I was like, why don't we just have people talk about things that are significant in their life, whether it's a film, a place, a person, a memory, a possession, a song, and I really, really wanted to do it. So I was like, can I create something in a completely different medium that feels almost the antithesis of what the Late Late Show was? It's completely different. It's calm and it's quiet and it's soft and it's people talking about things that they love or that were moments in their life. And like some of the stuff that we've heard has just been great. So I've really loved that creativity. I love the creativity of just, we're going to put this on Sirius XM and hopefully people find it.
100%.
And hopefully it'll be just a piece of joy. It'll be a warm hug on a Sunday afternoon. And that would be a lovely thing to put out into the world. But that's a sort of gestation period of 30 years. I don't think I should do that again.
Yeah.
But I do think what I'd really love to do is try and write one more thing.
Yeah.
I'd love to try and write one more thing. I'd love to write again with Ruth Jones, who I wrote Gavin and Stacey with. I love her so much. She is and has been a constant in my life as a friend. And you want to talk about a long friendship, And so I'd love to try and write something else with her. I don't know what that'll be. I don't even know if we'll do it. I don't know. But we do have chats about maybe this is the thing,
Yeah.
So that's what I'd really love to do. Yeah. It's just, have you listened to Bradley Cooper talk about making Maestro?
Maestro, yeah, I did, recently.
Where he really just made a decision to give himself over entirely for 3 years to that project, to just go, well, what does it feel like actually to not move from one thing to the next, to be here, there, doing this, doing that? What does it feel like to just give myself over in every way? To the point where I imagine a lot of people around him on that set were earning more financially, but like as a challenge to give himself over to it in the most beautiful way, I think is so inspiring to watch. And I don't know if I've ever done that. I know I haven't done that. I'm never like that on that level. But like, I don't think I've ever completely just given myself over to something and seen it through from inception to pushing it on the water and letting other people decide whether it's good or not, and seeing who I am the other side of it. Like that's, I think, that would be a really good thing to do. Like I might go, there's this, I just found this like 7-weekend course at the film school in Beaconsfield, or I don't know how many days. I might be wrong. But I think, well, maybe I'll do that. I wouldn't mind doing some acting classes. I just wouldn't mind just going, well, I wonder if there's one more thing.
Yeah.
And if there isn't, how lucky was I?
Yeah.
You know? But I really feel like I might be getting to a spot where I might have something to say.
Yeah. James, you're very unique and extremely thoughtful and conscious and so honest and genuine. It's been such a treat talking to you, honestly, like genuinely just sitting with you. And I know that I'm listening to an actual stream of consciousness more than curated answers. And, you know, it's really powerful. It's been really, really special. And I want to thank you for giving me this space, holding this space and trusting me with it.
I mean it. It's a real thrill to sit and chat with you. It's great. It's a lovely thing you've created here. It's brilliant. It's really brilliant what you're doing. I'm so. It's strange. I don't know if you feel this, but I feel like there's a strange thing with like Brits that go to America, because it's only like there's only a handful of us who know how hard it is and how vast that is. So like when I look at your stuff and I see the things that you're putting out, and like I think I walked past like a huge billboard of you the other week, and I was like, and I don't know, we'd never met, but we have friends in common, and I was like, yeah. I was like, go on, boy. Yeah.
Not when I get to work yet.
This is great. I was like, you're from Wood Green. Is it Wood Green? Yeah, you're from Wood Green. Look at him. I'm very proud of you with no reason to be.
No, mate, I appreciate it.